One move here wins for white. Every other move loses. There are no draws. Can you find it? Pause the video if you need to before I get into the solution. Now when we look at this puzzle here, the thing that stands out is that black is about to promote their two pawns. And there's nothing we can really do about it. Maybe you thought, hey, I'm going to try to stop the pawns. Well, if you did, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. No matter what white does here, they cannot stop the pawns. Let's say we move the rook here to attack one of the pawns. Black will just advance the pawn. And even if we bring the rook down, saying, okay, if you advance this pawn, I'll take it, and then I'm ready to take this pawn, black can just now advance this pawn, and there's nothing white can do here, right? You can't take this pawn because then black gets a queen here with check. And even if you go back here and say, okay, I'm going to maybe throw in a check on the king, and then I can bring my rook down. Okay, the king moves. You bring the rook down. It again doesn't matter. Promote to a queen, and after the rook takes, black is just up a queen and white is completely lost here. So that does not work. And then maybe you thought, well, I'll stop the pawns with my rook and my king. And first, I'll move the king down. And now I'm saying, okay, if you advance this D pawn, I'm going to take your E pawn. But again, it doesn't work because even if they advance the D pawn and you take the E pawn, this D pawn is too quick and becomes a king. Or a queen, excuse me. So maybe you realize that and said, okay, well, then I'm going to bring the rook over. And now the rook protects this pawn. The king attacks this pawn. You can't really promote. But again, it doesn't work because now they just move the E pawn. And if the rook takes, we get a queen or black gets a queen with check. Again, not good. Or if you try to bring the king down again, saying, okay, I'm going to keep the king close to the pawns. Once again, we just promote here. Rook is forced to take. And then this pawn becomes a queen. And no matter what you do, black is going to end up with a queen and white is going to be lost here. So maybe you realize that and said, okay, I can't stop the pawns, but maybe I can attack the king, which is good. That's exactly what we want to do. But did you attack the king the right way? Maybe you thought initially, I'm going to advance a pawn, attack black's king with check. It's protected by the rook. It looks good. But once the king moves to safety here, what is the follow-up? There is really no other way to attack the king. And once again, we're in this position where we can't stop the pawns from queening. Maybe you saw that and said, okay, I can't attack the king that way, but maybe I can sacrifice the rook like this. I will say, if you thought this, you are on the right track. You're just a little too soon here. Because what's going to happen here is black will just take the pawn. And if we take the pawn back, black just captures. And now this king has no chance of catching these pawns. But maybe you said, well, my plan wasn't to, take back with the pawn. My plan was to advance this pawn to my own queen. Well, again, it doesn't work for the reasons just outlined. I mean, really, there's many things black can do here. They can really mess with you and just block the pawn and advance their pawns for a queen. Or they can take the pawn and now it's just a completely lost game for white. There's no doubt about it. But you were on the right track. I will say that. So here is your last chance. Before I show the actual correct move, now that you know those don't work, can you find it one last time? If you found the seemingly innocent king to d6 move, congratulations, this is the move. And it looks weird, right? Like, oh wait, we're moving our king. We're not attacking the king. They're going to easily advance these pawns now. But it's okay, we don't care, because after black plays d2, we're going to once again move our king, this time to c7. And now you can see maybe what's going on here. And for those of you who played the rook sacrifice, you may definitely be able to see. And even though black gets a queen here and you think, well, okay, we're losing. They just got a queen. That queen is going to be completely futile because after we throw in this rook sacrifice again, if you saw it earlier in the position, congratulations, you were just a little too early. Black has no choice but to take here with the pawn. The king can't move this way because of the rook or this way because of our king. Has to take back with the pawn. Now you got to be careful here. You can still lose this game. So I'll give you a moment. If you want, pause the video. Don't miss the right move. Did you see the right move? It's not to take back with the pawn. So those of you who thought, promoting this pawn is the way to go, you are correct because now we can move this pawn with check and it's protected by our king. Black has no choice but to move the king up the board. Again, can't come here to b8 because of our king. And again, we're going to move the pawn with tempo, with check. Once again, black only has one move. All these moves are forced. And then, of course, the final blow, we promote to a queen for checkmate. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourself, well, black doesn't have to try to promote to a pawn after we play king to d6. And you're right. So let's look at some other things black could do here. Maybe black foresees our rook sacrifice here and says, I'm going to block it with the pawn here. No biggie. We are going to once again continue with king to c7. And black is completely lost here. Black doesn't really have a move. I mean, you could move the king up this way, but then you're just walking into a mate when we check you here. And you got to come back down and come here, and then the next move is going to be checkmate, so can't do that. So really, black's best move here is to try to once again promote the pawn, but it's too late because we are going to use our rook once again, but this time we're just going to take the pawn. The black cannot capture. Black, okay, yeah, you get a queen again, but next move, checkmate, that's it, because again, the king cannot move to any of these squares here. They are stuck, and they cannot take back the rook because it's protected by the pawn. So once again, checkmate. Okay, what if black tries to run away with the king? Well, that doesn't work either. Let's first look at if king kind of comes down here to b6, says, okay, I'm going to go after your pawn. I'm going to prevent the rook from coming in here. Well, now we just take this pawn here, and this is completely lost for black, whatever they do. Because they cannot save this pawn. Even if they take our pawn, we take back with the rook, and now it's a rook and a pawn and a king. And even if they say, okay, I'm going to, start pushing my pawn, we just throw in this check, and there's nothing black can do here, because if black comes down to either of these squares to attack our rook, we just take the pawn. And if they say, okay, I'm going to, protect my pawn by either moving here or here, it doesn't matter, wherever they go, we're just going to move the king here to the pawn, and even if they advance it on the next move, we take it, the rook is connected, they have to move the king, it's a rook and king versus a king, which is a checkmate if you know how to do it. If not, maybe I'll make a video about that. Let me know if you want to see a video about how to checkmate with a rook and a king. But again, if we go back to here, okay, so instead of coming down to b6, maybe they go to b8. King tries to run away to b8. That doesn't work either, because now we're going to play this pawn push, and now we have basically taken away every square from the king. The king can only basically move, up on these ranks. So whatever the king does here, I mean, if the king tries to run away this way, it's checkmate. If the king tries to run away this way, it's also checkmate, because again, the king can't come down here because of our king. This is also checkmate. So really their only hope is to try to promote a pawn, but as I just showed, the next move is checkmate.